The year is...
The voters turned out in record numbers and delivered an historic victory.
The last cigarette before heading out.
The 2-hour Friends finale begins 8/7 Central.
At this point, we have found substantial evidence of an intent of senior-level Iraqi officials.
The wait is over. This is the Nintendo DS.
The Lord of the Rings, the return of...
Shoot that stuff and swing from stuff.
The plane carrying the coffin of former U.S. President Ronald Reagan.
We have not found at this point actual weapons.
But as for me in 2004, I am in the 7th grade or something. I have just joined band and am playing the trombone, and I am sick. I'm playing hooky. I am not going to school. What am I actually? I'm ready to play Zelda's Wind Waker or whatever this game was. And my dad is staying home to take care of me. He's going to take me to the... That is not how this was supposed to go. I was supposed to be left to my own devices. So, before we go, my dad starts making chorizo and eggs. I can smell chorizo on the stovetop. I've never had this before. I turn on the endless stream of MTV music videos. I wrap up in my Anakin Skywalker blanket, and then this happens. I am changed forever. We go to the doctor, and yes, Dad, I'm not sick. We both knew that going into this situation. But can you take me to Target so we can get this CD called American Idiot? I was given an advertisement while you were making me breakfast on the day that I lied to you about being sick, and now I'm swindling you for a CD. This is horrid to recount this memory now that I'm putting it into context of words. He caves. Success. Now the hard part. Carefully turn down the words that are bad. I follow the lyric book here. This is imperative. I've only had the CD for like 5 minutes, and it is not going to get taken away from me like Outcast's The Love Below did. Now listen, this day is core data for me. Green Day, with the help of UltimateGuitar.com, taught me to play the guitar. Years go on, I'm getting older, they get older, and would you know it, I hear that Green Day is coming out with a new record. And I'm like, heck yes. This definitely will go well. Well...
And that's it.
Okay, Green Day origins. To say that the members of Green Day go back would be an understatement. And for anyone who is unaware of how this band formed, it was kind of a dream scenario. Billy was the son of a jazz drummer and a waitress. As a kid, Billy loved music, and this happened.
Look for love, and we
Mike meets Billy in middle school or something, and they both love being musicians. It's like super sweet and cute, and they take on a moniker called Sweet Children, and there's a drummer that we never see again because he went to college, and that sucks for him.
I met Mike Dirnt in the 5th grade. Mike met my father one time, and I think my father died probably 2 weeks later. So I had just met Mike, it was 1982. One of my first conversations that I ever had with Mike was about music. I think it was the first thing we ever talked about. I think we talked about Ozzy a little bit. And then I brought him home because I was like, hey, this guy's got an interest in music. And basically we were in the same class and we were both kind of competing to be class clown. So we just kind of started, goofing around. I remember he had like this, those little troll dolls. He kept one in his pocket all the time. He wanted to be a stand-up comedian, even at a young age, like back when we were that young. He had a routine. He had all these jokes. He got in a lot of fights. He pissed a lot of people off. And I just immediately liked him. We've been friends ever since, 10 years old.
Yeah, before Green Day was Green Day, they were Sweet Children. Gigging where they could, I think Mike wasn't even on bass guitar originally, yada, yada, yada. If you've ever been in a band, especially in middle school, you know how this goes. You see, as Sweet Children was coming up, there was this now prolific venue, 924 GILMAN. Billy and company were deeply inspired by the scene forming there, most notably a band called Operation Ivy. This band eventually broke up and somewhat became rancid, but Sweet Children would go on to play 924 GILMAN as well, even having their band name painted on a banister years later. This was no different to these kids than playing Carnegie Hall. Larry Livermore, owner of Lookout Records, a small independent label, signed them after seeing one of their shows. Their band name was a little too similar to another act in town, leading them to change their name to Green Day, or so says the internet. Green Day, a phrase referring to smoking weed all day, now signed with Lookout Records, sets the stage for a series of EPs which would eventually create the band's very first album.
Oh my God, what are you doing? Okay, so album, quote unquote, number 1. It's called 1039 Smoothed Out Slappy Hours.
You looking at your phone?
There's Despicable Me 4 coming out.
What influences you to write about girls? I know what influences you question.
Well, the girl I have the shittiest love life known to man, pretty much.
I had never had a girlfriend. Relationships. Oh, do you want a girlfriend?
Nah, fuck that.
If Green Day were a sitcom, this would be episode 1. It's Billy and Mike, but they aren't quite their characters yet. We hear Billy extending into registers that we really don't hear him on in following records. He uses techniques like pinch harmonics in At the Library, or slap bass is used by Mike in 16. These are techniques we will almost never see again in Green Day's discography, but still you get lots of ideas that would later become their iconic 3-piece sound, the playful and plucky bass refrain in Road to Acceptance. The addition of tight harmonies between Billy and Mike.
Do you feel the same? It's calling my name.
A hyperfixation on nostalgia and coming of age. These are all ingredients we see in the most iconic phases of Green Day, and they're really neat to hear here. Some songs in 1039 even get reused down the road. The Judge's Daughter outro becomes the outro to Burnout. 16 becomes Walking Contradiction. And their cover of Operation Ivy's Knowledge, which is still a staple of their live show, would eventually lay the groundwork for the sound that was honed in Longview. Still, it's clear that this album was only a springboard for Green Day. And though it's fun, it's not really something I revisit or care for beyond general curiosity.
Oh yeah. Okay, tell me about Kerplunk.
It's stylized as Kerplunk with an exclamation point. Album artwork is this like girl wearing a t-shirt with a flower, and she's holding a gun that's smoking.
Okay.
I don't know what the album artwork looks like firsthand because we only have a CD version of it that we burned back when, and by we I mean Jamie burned when he was a child.
Can you give us a live reaction to the record cover?
I know that's more of me doing it, but that's how I feel like.
Well, like a live reaction. No, a live reaction, not a
I know not
impersonation, but like
I don't
a reaction.
have a reaction. No, it's fine. I like that it's a drawing.
Here we go.
In Kerplunk, we see a simplification of their formula. It's more powerful. We lessen the inclusion of classic rock influence. We cut that let's just record it all 1 hour runtime into a tighter 42 minutes. And it feels good. This is not only due to the more selective cuts, but
I'm going to pause you real quick. Previous Jamie. This is editing Jamie. 1,039 smoothed out Slappy hours was actually a compilation of EPs, which is why there's so much bloat. And I feel like it's important to note that. It's really not a bug of that record because it's kind of not a record. I think 1,000 hours was an EP, and 39/smooth was an EP, and you get the point. So anyways, compilation. Still, Kerplunk is a better listen in retrospect, but you kind of can't really fault them. Okay, enjoy the video. Bye.
Is largely in part to their new drummer, Trey Cool. 2,000 Light Years Away kicks off the record, honing in exactly what makes this era of Green Day so infectious. Playful and elaborate bass lines, dancing within alternating palm-muted guitar strums over a song longing for a girl that would later become Billy Joe's wife, Adrian. Welcome to Paradise, a song they would later redo for Dookie. We hear sustained ahs from Dern while Billy sings about arriving in like a barren wasteland that he likes to call his home. It's very reminiscent of Holiday from American Idiot.
Some call it some call it nice.
Christy Road similarly shows a more ambitious song structure that we would see the band later performing in songs like Jesus of Suburbia, Homecoming, and even 21st Century Breakdown. Kerplunk is frivolous Green Day at its finest, but it's not shallow. Android sees Billy contemplating on his mortality, singing "It Seems So Frightening, Time Passes Like Lightning, One Day You Are Struck Down." And I know it's not the most subtle of lyrics, but I think him being so young, it fits. It works really well for me. No One Knows is a ballad about young heartbreak and shows an incredible amount of restraint. Words I Might Have Ate is something we would eventually see the band expand upon in 2001's Warning, and maybe even better here. At 43 minutes, it does overstay its welcome just a bit with cuts like Sweet Children, Best Thing in Town, and Strangeland.
And apparently, like, those songs are just bonus tracks. So, I don't know. Does that even matter?
They just offer more of the same power chords and upbeat tempos while not really giving me a melody that I was able to latch on to. I can't say that this album is necessarily perfect or their best, but I think it's among their best. When you combine the honing in of Green Day's three-piece sound with their now growing popularity, selling 50,000 copies of Kerplunk and attaching onto Bad Religion's Recipe for Hate tour as an opener, you begin to see that a push into the mainstream was inevitable. The real question, though, would Green Day, now a product of a scene deeply rooted in local and independent art and inclusivity, sell out to a much more brutal music industry?
Like you. You guys are pretty cool motherfuckers.
And now, after boldly going where no stuffed dog has gone before, Pluto is safely home at the Garmisch American School.
Come back and take responsibility for his pride.
Mufasa is Papa.
He is himself expressing why things look negative to him, why he doesn't think he'll see tomorrow.
Toward ensuring that nuclear missiles never again will be targeted at the children.
You okay, sweetie?
I just feel like someone reached down my throat, grabbed my small intestine, pulled it out of
The nerve center. This is the first office of Amazon.com Inc.
Kurt Cobain, the leader of one of rock's most gifted and promising bands, Nirvana, is dead, and this is the story as we know it so far.
Later on, thinking it over, I realized that in a way, Forrest and his friend Jenny represent the American population in the last 40 years, stumbling from one historical event to another.
Vendu aux États-Unis, la France risque d'accrocher le wagon, et c'est nulle part ailleurs qu'ils ont choisi pour leur première télé française. Green Day, c'est très.
In 1994, Green Day releases Dookie. And this thing sounds great. The production that oftentimes takes away from recently signed bands, especially from this genre, it didn't ruin Green Day. However, what catapulted them into the public eye banished them from the punk rock oasis of Gilman Street and pushed punk rock out to the masses like never before.
Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once? I am one of those melodrama monocules who ride into the bone, no doubt about it. Sometimes I give myself the crit. Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. It all keeps adding up. I think I'm laying up. Yeah, my chest paranoid. And my job's shut.
If you have heard of Green Day loosely, then it's very likely that you know a handful of tunes from Dookie. When I Come Around, Basket Case, Longview, they're staples in the genre and are only a couple of tracks off of this record. The band kicks the album off with Burnout. Billy Joe sings the guitar solos are more composed this time around. We hear one of Mike's best bass lines in Longview. And I really feel that this is Trey Cool's best inclusion on an album, like in their whole time. The drums driving us into Longview's tom shuffle out of the back half instrumental on Jump is not as calculated as we would see transitions in an album like American Idiot, and it feels very live and organic. Burnout's drum solo kicking the band back into the final chorus of the track is iconic. And the explosive fills throughout Basket Case really keep the song's momentum clear and forward moving. It's awesome. I do feel like Eminence, Sleepish, Sassafras Roots, and Pulling Teeth, they don't really contribute anything new. to the record, and I just think they could have been left out. But even these tunes are infectious and would have been standouts on prior releases. Most would consider Dookie to be the best in Green Day's discography. And I would agree that it's up there. We see the band consistently producing hit songs after this record. I don't really know, though, that anything past Dookie as a record feels as good as this one does. And while we will see Green Day speaking on rebellion, desolation, and youth in future projects, it begins to look less and less real.
Okay, so this one, say, this record's Insomniac. So you're gonna say this record is Insomniac.
This record is Insomniac.
Okay, and what year, or do you like this record?
I don't think I know a single song off of it.
Okay, good start.
People ask, why did Green Day make Insomniac? The band's state of discombobulation inspired them to prove themselves with Insomniac.
What year did Insomniac come out?
1995.
Can I say it again?
1995.
Got it.
The success of Dookie, it was immense. 20 million copies were sold worldwide. It received 9 MTV Music Award nominations. It won a Grammy for Best Alternative Album. So there was naturally pressure for the band to capitalize on this success. But the follow-up, Insomniac, clearly displays a band that is angry. I know that might come as a surprise, but not everyone was happy for Green Day, more specifically the scene around Gilman Street. Green Day was banished from the venue and was openly mocked and discarded as sellouts. And hey, I love this thing. I like the weird snarl that Billy Joe is taking on in Babs Olva, who... The bone-dry production in Brain Stew, the conflict expressed in 86 for leaving Gilman and selling out, the masochism of Geek Stink Breath, and the grossness. It's fun. The album is full of great moments, and in a lot of ways, I think this record is overlooked in Green Day's discography, and I don't think that it should be. Yes, it has a handful of throwaways. Westbound Sign comes to mind, Stewart and the Ave, and Tightwad Hill. I honestly feel the same way about Dookie, though. There's just that handful of bloat for me. The difference here between the two projects, to my ears, is Insomniac doesn't have anything as anthemic as a Basket Case or a Welcome to Paradise. It's also much less dynamic. The instrumentation pretty much remains everyone at once most of the time, and it doesn't really take much of a break. Again, this is not the home of Green Day's greatest hits, and while Brain Stew certainly was successful, it's not a good riddance time of your life. And with the next turn in Green Day's career, in some ways, the band sees a revitalization. But for me, Blood in the Water starts here.
Is he the same wasp that's over there now?
Look at that guy.
The least populated Buc-ee's I've ever seen in my life. Nimrod. Green Day. It's a studio album. Generally positive reviews. That's it. Okay, I'm gonna stop now because I need to go buy water bottles and change my shirt. Bye. Pretty good?
Pretty good.
To get into Green Day's next album, we need to rewind just a bit to the reception of Insomniac. You see, Insomniac didn't sell or review poorly necessarily, but it did pale in comparison to Dookie, selling around 6 million worldwide. It did garner some more nominations, but given the harsh and crass nature of the record, I don't really think that was the point. Plus, it was assembled so quickly, and the success of Dookie was so vast that it basically was competing with another Green Day record. I believe it was the vast but understandable numbers drop, the constant touring and promotional push that comes with a breakout record like that, the plethora of opinions surrounding punk music now being a commodity, and the enormous lifestyle changes that Billy, Mike, and Trey were undergoing that led to them taking a little bit of a break. They canceled their European tour, and they were just worn out. And that gives us some more proper context for what I believe is an example of Green Day shedding themselves of any expectations. Nimrod elevates Green Day conceptually and mirrors a zig to zag style pivot. For better or for worse, this is the new direction. We begin to see the band exploring different genres. The arrangements are more colorful at times, even hearing more classical instrumentation on Good Riddance and Last Ride In. It does evolve in interesting ways too, despite being based on pretty simple concepts and progressions most of the time. Listen, here are 3 Achilles heels of the group during Nimrod for me. Songs that can be summarized and fully explored in the title alone. Nice Guys finish last. Musically, it's Green Day. Lyrically, it's a generic concept that remains static. It does not twist, it does not invert, it does not evolve. And I'm not sure that this ever feels like it fully earns this lack of development. This type of tune will become more of a norm in other records, and I do believe that this is where it starts. 2 is Bloat. Nimrod is 50 minutes, which may seem like an appropriate album length, because it is. But in this 50 minutes, you get 18 tracks, and I can't help but feel like a solid amount of these tunes could have been combined or consolidated. I'll do my best to explain what I mean, but I have to admit this part of the script was difficult to put together. It's just hard to describe, but let me try. Worry Rock and Uptight nearly have the same development in their arrangement. They also have this sort of like down-tempo, melancholic vibe in their verses. This close together in the track list, they do kind of cancel each other out to my ears. Lyrically, they are definitely different, but I'm not sure that Worry Rock's explorations in a struggling relationship offers more than Redundant, which comes only 3 songs prior. This happens to me basically from track 7 through 15. It's just a problem of consolidation, and as a record, this thing ends up feeling longer than it should. 3, generic genre dabbling. Last Ride In. This song is only a few degrees away from a teleservice on-hold jingle. While the production is beautiful, it's luscious, and it captures these instruments perfectly, the composition is almost intentionally dull. It's nearly 4 minutes of runtime is the longest on the record, and there is nothing to justify that. The inclusion of conga drums, strings, harp, trumpets, marimba is well recorded, but Jesus, this is as much of an intriguing instrumental as a Canva template is cool graphic design. Still, Nimrod does pull through in offering some really special songs. I know that the obvious example is Good Riddance, and yes, I think it's great, but I feel like Redundant steals the show for me.
I cannot speak, I've lost my voice, I'm speechless and redundant, 'cause I love you is not enough, I'm lost for words.
I love those lyrics, and the chorus has such a fun descending chromatic line as the band builds upwards into the peak of the phrase. It's not groundbreaking, and I'll say this a lot through the video, but It is wonderful. And hey, that's what makes me conflicted on Nimrod. Some new experimentations work and others don't. Plus, there is a fair amount of bloat that just seems to be a habit for the band.
This gentle giant.
This one is called Warning. I've been waiting to film this for way too long. The next record is called Warning, and I keep forgetting to film the intro to it with Sarah. So here it is.
The success of Nimrod is complicated. It actually sold comparable copies worldwide to Insomniac. But examining that statistic is not necessarily going to give you the broader picture, because I believe the record did a lot to solidify Green Day as a household name. How? Television. And I don't mean MTV. Green Day and their label clearly made a promotional push in Nimrod to secure sync deals with some of the most popular television shows of the time, King of the Hill, ER, and famously, the season finale of Seinfeld. Just a little theory, but I think this outlined a pathway towards longevity for the band, or to the label, who knows. But the point is, the experimentation of Nimrod would continue. When the band gets to Warning in 2000, they were 6 years into fame and seemingly across the spectrum in attitude and genre from Dookie. This is a major switch up. We see cleaner sound in general. The guitars lose a lot of that wall of sound distortion. The lyrics are less rebellious youth and more 30-something button-pushing monotony. The iconic power chord is subbed in majorly for a standard open variation. And Green Day fandom doesn't really love this record, at least universally. Now, we do have a lot of love for Warning circulating, but in many ways, this was a disappointment at the time. And this might be the moment that you don't want to listen to me anymore. I like this record. I think it has a tight runtime of 41 minutes. The melodic writing from Billy and his vocals are fresh, they're fun, and they're varied. They feel really new at this phase. Billy has a tendency to latch onto certain melodic ideas over and over, especially in later Green Day. Right now he's on this like, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. He's like really on that one, and it's we'll get to that. Anyways, Warning, the choruses, they stay with me and are really satisfying. The instrumentation is not necessarily very diverse, but I don't mind that. Think Insomniac, but a much more melodic and bright approach. While I don't think that this sound is as nostalgic for me in retrospect as Dookie, it still feels really good, and it feels very Green Day too. The shorter track count pays off here because the songs do feel fully realized. You have cool layering, modulations, and tempo variation are also on the record consistently through the track list. It leads to Warning being a quick listen, while still offering a full LP worth of tracks. So what I liked about Warning is an improvement majorly from my criticism of Nimrod. A slimmer 12 tracks allows the band to consolidate nicely and really layer and make these songs feel special. Lyrically, we have Billy in a more personal regard, and with a bit more emphasis on politics than we're used to, at least in a direct manner and from Green Day. The punk rock genre obviously is notorious for political music, and while they are included in here and they're not bad, they are at best pretty generic. I prefer this over the meaningless tough guy aesthetic we saw in Nimrod and we'll see later, so I really don't mind it. I also don't find the songs to be as impactful on me as Coming Clean from Dookie, a Redundant from Nimrod, or even Christy Road from Kerplunk, but we still do get a much more consistently emotional Green Day. The peaks are not as high, but the floor of it was higher for me. However, yeah, Misery. Hi everyone, editing me. This next part of the video, I wasn't happy with how I filmed it, so I'm just going to try to tell you a little bit less scripted. There's a song on the record called Misery. It's like the one song on Warning I just think sucks. It is beautifully recorded and it's, you know, wonderfully performed. It's just so long and it's boring. At least this has like a story that's going on in the lyrics, but the story is also kind of hokey, and I won't put the song in here because they've, to what I can find, I don't think they've ever played the song live. The only thing I could find was like a sound check where a fan waiting outside the gate could like hear them playing it maybe. So yeah, it's not a great song. It like holds the album back, and it's the one caveat to Warning. Listen if you're morbidly curious, but you can basically just imagine a Disney riverboat ride, and that's kind of the musical vibe. All right, back to the video. Bye. It all just comes off as having a shallow understanding of what these instruments can do. It also is 5 minutes long, which again is the longest song on the record. And I know when you do a song like this, you want to have time to develop musical ideas, but it just feels so sparse and tacky, which I think is the point, but it just doesn't work for me here. But more on that later, because it does work for me somewhere else, and we'll get there. Overall, Warning does deliver for me. I love that we end on the somber note of Macy's Day Parade, which is such a slept-on song from the band. Economy-sized dreams of hope is a wonderful sentiment, and I wish that this tune got more love in the community at large. It's a lovely endpoint. And you know what? This largely seemed like a winding down period for Green Day. There are so many reasons why that could have been. Selling under 4 million copies worldwide, and speculatively being impacted by the shift to platforms like Napster and LimeWire. This was their lowest performance commercially. Mixed reviews. Questioned whether the social commentary found in Warning was even useful, coming from a band who became famous for a record named after poop. The new resentment from fans who wanted their punk rock irreverence to surface again. It felt like the band could do no right. But I think that the real reason that Green Day started to wind down was the nearly decade involvement in an infinitely exploitative industry. It did what it was built to do. Squeezing every single drop of capital possible from these musicians, and then discard them. And the trend at this point was becoming clear. Green Day's relevance was waning. We would receive a greatest hits album, a B-side album of unused cuts from prior records, involvement in an Austin Powers movie. This was likely the end.
Today's the Macy's Day Parade. The night of the living dead is on its way. Credit report for duty call.
This was a monumental career regardless. It was massive. And much of the music industry, by my dumbass estimation, is just luck. It's catching a moment before anyone even realizes it's a moment, and doing that forever. It is exhausting, and it's an impossible task. But Green Day is one of the few who did it, even if it was just once. Even if the commercial career of this band was Dookie and everything after, these kids from Oakland, they did the damn thing. It's amazing.
Economy-sized dreams of hope.
You know, I wonder if at this point in Green Day's history, if they started to ask themselves, why are we even doing this? Was this worth it? Everyone is mad at us for not being the version of us they think is acceptable. Our music is in King of the Hill. It's in Austin Powers. Are we a bunch of sellouts? Was Gilman right about us? Are we a bunch of fucking idiots for doing this in the first place?
I don't know how our next guest slipped past Secret Service, but really, we're delighted to have them here tonight. Please welcome back Green Day.
Damn, what a cliffhanger. Woo! Thank you. Thanks for watching this. Holy shit. I've been working on this video for far too long. I think I recorded the original script like a year ago. If you want to see more videos like this, please, I guess, subscribe to the channel and let me know. I have a part 2, regardless, that I am working on, and it is, it's already further along than this was when I started, so hopefully it won't take me an entire year. Yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.